So if for those of you who came since the last announcement, the microphones aren't working right now, except they are working on Zoom. So it is still being recorded. So if you thought you could say whatever you wanted, please do. Please do, because it will make it way more entertaining for at least the people at home. So there are a lot of things in Judaism that we do today that aren't in the Torah at all. And I started making a list, and the list started getting longer and longer. So things that are not in the Torah are separate dishes for meat and dairy. They prepared for Passover in 7 minutes. And by the way, charoset, not in the Torah. Neither is the wine at the Seder. But as Seder became more family-oriented, they added the wine. I don't think I have to explain why. The separation of milk and meat in general, the Torah just says, Lo tivashel gedi b'chelav imo. It says, don't boil a kid in its own mother's milk. How many of you ever wanted to do that anyway? Hey, we got a baby goat. What do you want to do with it? Nonetheless, we have these separations between milk and meat. Tefillin, not in the Torah. It says, Ve'yu l'totafot beineinecha, which we read in the Torah today. You shall have them as frontlets between your eyes. What's a frontlet? Any idea? Nobody knows what a frontlet is. Okay, we got one. Pardon me? Oh, no. Apparently my words are not translating. What he asked is, when is this over? That's what I heard. We have to fill it as, the boxes filled with the scrolls, the leather straps, but the Torah doesn't say that. It just says basically make a mark on your forehead. It could have been any variety of things. The Shema as a prayer is not in the Torah. Right, it's in our Torah portion today, the first couple of paragraphs, but the other parts are in the book of Numbers. They are not connected until later on. Torah reading, not in the Torah. Synagogues, not in the Torah. Shabbos candles, not in the Torah. Kiddush, not in the Torah. Even hamotzi, not in the Torah. All these things have been added since the destruction of the temple, and it was considered necessary to create our homes and our other spaces into higher levels of holiness. And on the other hand, there are things that are in the Torah that says you have to do, and we don't do them anymore. How many blasphemers have you stoned lately? Those of you who have watched The Life of Brian will appreciate this one. Right, but we don't stone people anymore. We're not supposed to stone people or execute people for violating the Torah. In preparing for Passover this past year, how many of you took that lamb and sacrificed it and roasted it and had it? And by the way, lamb chops don't count. By the way, funny Sherry Lewis story. She actually used to go to restaurants and order lamb chops just to see the expression on the waiter's face. But we don't do the Korban Pesach. We don't do the Passover sacrifice anymore, even though we could. That was a home and community-based sacrifice. It wasn't a temple-based sacrifice. And we could have rebuilt the temple. It was destroyed once and then rebuilt. It could have been rebuilt again. It wouldn't have been easy, but we could have. So we do a lot of things that are not in the Torah. We don't do a lot of things that are in the Torah, but we have a verse today in the Torah portion, Lo tosifu al hadavar asher nochi metzaveh etchem v'lo tigra'u mimenu lishmor et mitzvot Adonai. It says, don't add anything to what I command, says God, and don't take anything away from it. Just keep the commandments that I tell you to do. Asher anichi metzaveh etchem. So we have a verse that says, don't add and don't subtract. And for 2,000 years, we've been adding and subtracting. Right? Every generation has done this, and it seems to be a dilemma. But I think that this doesn't refer to adding on rituals or taking away rituals, because every generation, again, for 2,000 years, have made adjustments, have made changes to what makes sense to increase a sense of holiness. What I think it means is, if you do a lot of the mitzvot, don't think that you're greater than other people who aren't doing as much as you are. That it's not a competition. And if you're not doing as much as what other people are doing, don't think of yourself as lesser. God doesn't grade on a curve. That was my college chemistry class, which is why I'm a rabbi. We're graded against ourselves. Being honest about what we can do, what we can connect to, maybe what we can do someday, but we're just not ready for. God doesn't want us to judge each other on the mitzvot and to think ourselves holier than other people. And we also shouldn't look at other people and say, we will never be worthy, that I can never do enough. There are a lot of people who feel that because they don't do everything, they shouldn't come to services, that God won't hear their prayers, or they shouldn't have an aliyah. And Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, who was one of the great rabbis of the 20th century, he said that during duchening, when the priesthood stands on the bima and offers prayers of the Birkat HaKohanim, he says even people who aren't religious at all can do these blessings for the community, because maybe doing it will feel their own souls being elevated. It's not saying come back when you're worthy, is that doing the mitzvot makes us better. It's a way of improving who we are. Mitzvah is from the same word as mitzuyan, which is excellence. There's a phrase in the Talmud in Kiddushin. It says, "Gadol hamitzuvah." Great is the one who was commanded. And some people take it as, oh, if I do more mitzvot, I'm greater than you. What I think it means is that if you do things, it's about making yourself greater, finding a way to elevate yourselves, finding a way to elevate other people. So we've been taking away from the Torah, we've been adding to the Torah, all in the pursuit of making things better. So this isn't about doing everything. It's about how can you make sure that everything you do is making you and the world better. Shabbat Shalom.